Here we go. 3, 2, 1.
Kaboom. Welcome everybody to Pasadena Photography Arts. We're so happy to have you here tonight. My name is Ellen Friedlander and I'm co-director of PPA. And sitting next to me tonight is fellow advisor Lori Pond, and we are your co-hosts for this amazing show with recent grads or students. Go team. Tonight our presenters are sharing their work. The students are, I just messed it up, forgive me. The students become the teachers. We're so excited to have them with us. Thank you to Susan Gans, this month's underwriter for OpenShow. Our programs we're all volunteer based. So our programs are really depend on you coming and bringing your donating to our cause, which bring you our programs every month. So thank you, Susan, for bringing this program to life tonight. Another way to help support Pasadena Photography Arts is our advisors have put together a collect to support. So you can go to our website and you can see the work and you can purchase it, and that will directly help Pasadena Photography Arts bring programming to you. And now on with our show. Our first artist tonight, Hale Banfield. He's originally from Toronto, and Hale is now a local Los Angeles-based portrait, editorial, and commercial photographer who owns and operates Halban Photography. With the motto, Portraits with a Purpose, Hale approaches his work from a point of view that is intentional, focused, and aims on servicing his clients' needs and problems to the most successful outcome. Because the photo industry remains ever-changing, Hale stays on top of his skills as an active student in the photography department in Santa Monica College, always seeking new ways to perfect his craft in lighting, digital asset management, and business development. Take it away, Hale.
Thank you so very much. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Like she said, my name is Hale Banfield. I live here in West Hollywood, California. And tonight I'm going to show you some work from a forthcoming project called Like a Fire in My Soul, Black Men in Dance. This work is a follow-up to my first project, which was a coffee table book that I published back in 2019 called I Am Dance, Words and Images of the Black Dancer. That book was a personal project that really kind of took on a life of its own. It really caught on with the community, and it went on to win the NAACP Image Award for Outstanding Literary Work by a debut author. So it just goes to show the power of what a personal project can do when it reaches the masses. So this work here, like I said, is about Black men in dance. And I wanted to do this project because back in early 2020, as we know, there was so much going on with George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, and all that. So I want to give Black dancers an opportunity to kind of have a bit of a glow, a bit of a spotlight, if you will. So I found a collective of guys and just started shooting them. And this is just some of the work here. One of the themes that we explore here are masculinity, gender identity, politics, Black boy joy, and overall expression. So you'll see in some of the images here, we play with gender roles. I meet the dancers where they are. So I'll find a dancer and we'll start talking. And I'll try to find what really their essence or their source is, and I'll try to tap into that. So we find a commonality in that regard, and then I look at how I want to light them. Because again, every dancer is different and they will bring something very different to the shoot. And you know, one of the things that I love most about what I do is really getting a chance to connect and give back. You know, my background, I was a professional dancer for 25 years, so I have a strong connection to the dance world, although I haven't danced professionally in such a very long time. But, you know, to know that I have this ability as a photographer to kind of reach back with something that I know, with something that I currently do, is a true blessing. And if you have any questions about what I do or how I do it, just feel free to jump in. The work here kind of speaks for itself. I don't have any specific timeline for this new project going forward. The first project, it was on a very strict timeline because I was very anxious to get this out into the world. But because of COVID and so many things have changed, I'm just letting the work kind of happen organically as it will. There's no deadline for it. Unfortunately, with COVID, a lot of the dancers that I got to meet before the lockdown left LA. So I have to now find it in myself to leave Los Angeles to find other amazing dancers to shoot. And so that's a whole other effort in and of itself. But this is just some of the work here of some of the men I've shot here locally in Los Angeles.
So Hal, I'm really curious. This is Lori Pond, and I have a question for you about how you decide how to capture their poses when they're dancing. Do you let them decide what pose they might want to assume, or do you direct them toward a certain pose?
Yeah, certainly you have to meet the dancer where they are. So by that I mean, if a guy comes to me and he's really good at jumping, I'm going to feature that. If he's good at really good technical and he's got really beautiful lines, then I'll focus on that. So whoever that individual is, I kind of hone in on what they do best. And then we'll start by doing like a short little 8 count of some sort of routine or something, and not traveling because I'm stationary with the camera. And I'll try to capture that through an 8 count and say, okay, let's try that again. And then I know exactly where those moments are I'm trying to hit. So like for this example here, you know, him reaching out and very extended with a foot pointed, you know, you want to make sure that that's the capture I want, and that 8 count that we kind of put together, or he brought to me in the session. So meeting them where they are and playing to their strengths.
So what's your process involved in shooting these? Do you, how do you light these dancers?
Once again, it's really about the individual. So like for this shot here in particular, one of the things about dance, especially male dancers, is the incredible musculature that they carry with them. So you try to find a way to really highlight the musculature, and with black skin, it's really something you can really see the definition in their muscles. So for this, like example, this dancer here, I shot with a hard light because I really want that crunchy outline of the muscles. So it was a bare bulb strobe with a mag reflector on it, something very hard, very crunchy. Whereas I'll have another shot of another dancer. I think the little boy I shot with a softbox because, you know, he's younger, a bit more innocent. Yeah, this kid right here, and just put some edge light around him to define him and pop him off from the background. So it really does depend on the dancer, but I'll look at everything and say, okay, fine. He would do really great with some hard light to really pop out his muscles, whereas the little boy, will take a softbox on him, give him some edge light, some rim light around the sides, and make him really kind of stand out.
Very good. We have a comment from Susan Kaufer Carey, and she says, this work is stunning, Hal. So sensual, emotive, and deeply profound. How do you find the dancers?
Ooh, the dancers. It was really difficult in the beginning because I have not been part of a dance community for so many years. So one of those things is where you start to establish trust with one dancer, 2 dancers, and they see where you're coming from. They will then refer you to other amazing dancers. So then they would then lead a path my way. So it was kind of hard in the onset. But then once it was established that who I was and what I was doing, word kind of got around within the community, and it got much easier to kind of find and curate dancers. Now, granted, I shot everybody, but not everybody would make the final cut for obvious reasons. So that was kind of all happened. Just kind of, you put yourself out there, establish trust with someone. They know that you're not some crazy photographer out there to take advantage of them. And, you know, and that's how that worked.
So since you're a dancer and you have experience in the dance world for so long, you know what a pose should look like. We were talking about that earlier before the program. So how does that inform your photography when you're making a picture? Do you direct the dancers toward the perfection of a certain pose, or do you just shoot until you see it because you know what you're looking for?
Oh, hell froze. Yeah,
Oh,
he did. We're sorry, Hal. Come back. Oh, I don't know what to say. Are you going to come? Maybe he needs to leave and come back. Hal, you're frozen. Oh, he's going to come back.
Okay, good.
Okay, hold on one sec. We're looking at his work, which is stunning, absolutely stunning. And I know Hal is going to click back in. Let's see, this is what happens on live Zoom. Does anybody have any thoughts? It's magnificent work. We were blown away. It's hard to imagine, but he keeps his technique going by going to Santa Monica College. So that's pretty awesome. Well, we're going to go to the next person. Thank you, Hal. I know he'll come back. Okay, next artist tonight is Chantal Lesley. Chantal Lesley is a multicultural first-generation American born and raised in Brownsville, Texas, located along the US-Mexico border. Being the daughter of immigrants from both Germany and Peru has brought upon a feeling of being stretched between four cultures and has led her to confront ideas that focus on identity and contemporary social and political issues in her work. Her work is self-reflective, often portraying themes of the intangible, such as memory, dreams, and the retelling of autobiographical stories. Lesley acquired her BFA in fine art photography from Texas State University in 2021 and has exhibited her work throughout Texas and the US. And let's go on, and we're going to share, Chantal's going to share her work now. Welcome back, Hal.
Thank you so much for that introduction. Yes, so as she said, I am a multicultural individual. So my work definitely stems from my identity in exploring my generational trauma and my multifaceted cultures. And so this specific project, it's called En Medio de la Nostalgia, which translates to In the Midst of My Nostalgia. And the way that this project started was actually I was cleaning out my family's garage in the summer of I think it was either 2019 or 2020. 2019, I was cleaning out the garage and I came across these bins of photographs and they were like essentially abandoned, and it was my family archive. And so I really wanted to take it upon myself to preserve the family archive, but I was going through them and I was, you know, kind of remembering things about my family and realizing things about my family. But I specifically came across this letter from my grandfather to my mother. And so my mother is the one that's from Peru and immigrated, and that's where the majority of my family is from my mother's side. And basically while reading his letter, I was remembering that one of the only forms of communication that my mother had with that side of our family was through letters. It was through photographs. And so that was very important to me. And I realized that I kind of had to tell the story of my family through this project. So this became my thesis project. So I worked on this throughout 2020 and the first half of 2021. And yeah, a lot of these studio shots are actually in my kitchen, and I just had to like do have a makeshift studio in my kitchen, and I just made it work. But yeah, basically this entire project is just about how I feel stretched across these four cultures and how I bring them together and merge them together and how it makes sense to me. And so, for example, there's portraiture, landscapes, and still life. And at first, it might seem like none of this kind of pieces together, but I feel like that is a metaphor for how I feel in my identity. And so this picture specifically, this one's called I've Spent So Much Money Trying to Look Like You. And basically this is a portrait of my sister and I. My sister and I are 10 years apart. I'm the eldest of three. And we had a very interesting relationship. because growing up, since we did have such a big age gap, I took more of a motherly role to her, and that was very confusing for us. And I feel like it's something that we've barely been able to detach from and truly have become sisters. And I honestly think it's because of this project that we were able to create this bridge for our relationship, because I started being open with her and sharing these family archive photos and telling stories. And then she started sharing with me as well. And the way that title came about for that specific photo was we were having a conversation and I was telling her what it was like to grow up in the 90s and being presented in the media, or seeing how the media portrayed women and seeing that the ideal woman did not look like me and instead actually looked like her. And so essentially I was telling her, I've always wanted to look like you. And then she kind of clapped back and was like, are you kidding me? I've spent so much money trying to look like you. And so that's how that picture came about. But yes, so if you haven't been able to tell, there's some photos that have mirrors in them. And I used the mirror as a placeholder for a person. So this one in specific, it's called Self-Portrait, What Are You? And yeah, I was just playing in the studio, playing with light and form, and having my hand like that, it just felt kind of alien-esque. And it brought me back to growing up. People would often ask me, what are you? And it took me a long time to realize that that's a little bit of a microaggression that people are like, like they couldn't place me. And in that unknowingly, they were, othering me and alienating me. And so yeah, so that was the question that I often grew up with, what are you? And it just made me feel, I'm like, what do you mean? I'm human. Like, what does that mean? So that's my interpretation of that photo. But it's also, there's two other photos, hopefully they'll come through again, that are interpretations of my parents, because as I was going through my family archive, I was realizing that I did not have any photographic evidence of my mother as a child. And that kind of really struck me, because I was like, why don't I have a photo of my mom as a child? I have no perception of what she looks like. So these still lives were ways of me interpreting that. It was my own vision of creating a version of my mother as a child. And then I did the same with my dad, which is the picture with the orange. Hopefully, if it comes back around, this one, yes. So this one in specific, it's called Portrait of My Father as a Child. And this specific photo is because my dad, he has many sad stories. And one of his stories was that when he was a child in Germany, he was a bit of an orphan, which is why I'm a kind of disconnected from the German side of my family, because there really isn't a whole lot of family on my German side, so which is another reason why I feel more connected to my Peruvian side. But anyway, so my father was somewhat of an orphan, and he one Christmas he was with his cousins, and his cousins were getting bikes and all these things, and for him his Christmas present was an orange. And so that always like stuck with me, and so that's where this interpretation came from.
This is Lori. I have some questions about some specific images of yours. And one of the ones that was really calling out to me was the image of a man dressed in what looks like, yes, this one here, that looks like a Nazi uniform, and his face is deleted. And I wonder if you could speak to that.
Sure. Yeah. So actually, this is a photo of my father's father. So my grandfather. I do not know anything about this man. I actually don't even know his name. Like I said, my dad was a bit of an orphan, and also, I guess you can say, a bastard child. So this man abandoned my father. And this is the only picture that my dad had of him. And so yeah, so I felt like he didn't deserve to have a face. He didn't deserve to be noted or even preserved in any way. And yeah, I don't know anything about this man. My dad doesn't either. He actually, I think, asked his half sister, oh, do you know like anything about his uniform? And we didn't know either. But actually, I am in the middle of taking another photography class at the Houston Center of Photography, and my teacher did confirm that it is a Nazi uniform, and he was more than likely in the Navy. But yeah, I don't know anything about this man.
Wow, I can see why you deleted his face then. You talked about the mirror images, and did you want to speak up about the other, like this one here?
Yeah, so this one is portrait of my mother as a child, and this is the one that started the mirror images. And so, yeah, I just asked my mom what her favorite toy was as a child, and she said a ball and jacks. Both my parents grew up without money, and so, but this was one of her favorite toys. And so I just kind of, recontextualized what that would mean in a still life. And so I used the mirror as a metaphor, as a placeholder for a person. And what was also pretty fascinating to me is I work really intuitively. So sometimes I don't understand exactly what I'm making. And then later on, I'll be like, oh my gosh, like I was making this subconsciously and it all makes sense. But so while I was doing this project, I was reading this book called La Frontera by Gloria Anzaldúa, who is also from the Rio Grande Valley. And basically she was mentioning how mirrors are not only a reflection of ourselves, but they're like a portal to ourselves. And I really connected with that. And so that was just another way of me of looking at these images. And then I also considered how we mirror each other in our relationships. And so that's another way I see these photos, how like me and my parents mirror each other. And so, yeah, it's just a lot of inner reflectiveness that goes on in my process.
I really like how you included the green highlights in the background and they reflect the plants in the mirror. I think that was a brilliant touch.
Thank you.
And I just, my own curiosity, and the picture of you as the Virgin Mary, I guess, or the Virgen de Guadalupe, I'm not sure which, but
Yes.
did you make the headdress?
I did not. So actually it was one of my classmates and I asked to borrow it. So kudos to them. But yeah, so this photo is called La Alegría de la Familia, which translates to the joy of the family. And yes, so I grew up in going to Catholic school. And so my family were not really practicing Catholics, but I did grow up going to Catholic school. So it's kind of like Catholic imagery is kind of always in the back of my mind. And so I decided to recreate a vision of like a modern Virgin Mary. And it was because my mom would sometimes call me La Alegría de la Familia, the joy of the family. And it just, while I think that compliment to me is like a little bit of a double-edged sword, because it makes me feel great, but at the same time, I always feel like I have to uphold that standard and have that strength, and I'm not able to be vulnerable. And sometimes I struggle with that. And so that was just my way of portraying that in this photo. And that I also wanted to include my dog because he's the actual joy of the family.
Yes. Debbie Arlook, who's one of our advisors, says deeply powerful project, Chantal, with great use of metaphors.
Thank you. Yeah.
And I have another question about your last photograph in the series, and that's the one with your legs sticking out of the folk art. What would you call that?
It's called a retablo.
Retablo. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So, yeah, this picture has a lot of layers to it. So I think I'll start with the retablo. So basically, when my parents first immigrated to the US, they were struggling financially and they didn't have careers or anything like that. And I was in the picture as well. So I was a newborn. So what they would do to get by at the time is that they would sell Peruvian tchotchkes like a retablo at flea markets. And sometimes they couldn't make enough money to even pay for their table at the flea market. And so it was really important for me to construct this because I was like, how can this moment and me be present for this moment? And then also in my lifetime, I'm graduating from art school like that too. I was like, that is a crazy journey to me. So it was very important for me to construct this retablo and insert myself into it. So I brought this to Boca Chica Beach, which is in Brownsville. And this one is called Just Landed. And it's a little bit of a double entendre because as I was trying to insert American culture into this series, for this picture in particular, I was thinking of, like The Wizard of Oz and classic American movies, but also Boca Chica Beach is the location of Elon Musk's SpaceX. And so that's like the double entendre of like, the rocket.
Wow, that is a multi-layered photo. Do we have time to have for one more comment? Rollins, who is another advisor at Pasadena Photography Arts, says the self-portrait looking towards the border wall is reminiscent of the painting Christina's World by Andrew Wyeth. I perceive a sense of longing. Can you talk about that image?
Absolutely, yes. And that is exactly, Christina's World is exactly the reference that I was going for. And so, yeah, so that picture in particular is at the border wall. Specifically at Sable Palm in Brownsville, Texas, which is a wildlife sanctuary. And yeah, I think I realized when I came back to Brownsville to make these photos that I felt like a stranger in my own hometown because eventually, I've lived here in Austin for almost 8 years now, and the rest of my family moved here too. And so I have some friends in Brownsville, but I don't have a lot of ties in Brownsville left. And so I think it's definitely, this picture has a sense of hope and longing for me finding a sense of place and belonging.
It's a beautiful image, really well made. Thank you.
And fun fact about this photo too, all my photos have stories, by the way, but fun fact about this one is that like literally right out of frame was a Border Patrol agent, and it was very strange. Growing up, coming across Border Patrol agents as a teen was a very weird experience, and this was one of them. And I was like, but thankfully they didn't bother me. I was just like, please let me leave me alone. Let me just take my little artsy pictures.
Well, it's a wonderful project, and so happy that you shared it tonight with us. It's wonderful, Chantal.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing me this platform. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. So we're going to bring Hal back because he was just zoomed out. Yeah, zoomed out. There you go.
I am so sorry. I have no idea why that happened or how that happened. I have very good Wi-Fi over here, so please forgive me. I don't know what was going on with that.
Not your fault.
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't know where I left off. So please prompt me because
So we're looking at this wonderful image here, Hal, with the chains. This is very unusual for the photographs that you've shared with us tonight. The chains. What's this all about?
Yeah, so this dancer, the dance in the dark is an actual tattoo. So he came to me with this tattoo, and I thought, wouldn't this be cool if we kind of did something like you're breaking out, you're just breaking free and dances your way out of the darkness. So Dance in the Dark is an actual tattoo he actually has on his chest. And I wanted to take the imagery of him breaking some shackles that are keeping him kind of in bondage, and his way out of bondage is to dance. So that was kind of the story behind this.
That's great. I think where we left off when you got cut off was I was asking you about the poses that the dancers are assuming as you're photographing them, and how you make sure that they are in exactly the right pose. Is it pretty much do they know, or do you have to prompt them into the right pose very often? Or how
Yeah,
does
I
that
generally
work?
will have to give them sort of like borders. So don't leave too much out of from this area to that area because that's the actual framing on that I have. So they can't do much traveling. And so if they're doing a jump or some sort of leap, I have to let them know that they can't leap too far out of my frame. So just enough so that where they land, that's where the picture is going to capture. Or if they're in the middle of if they're in the air, that I know that that exact moment is where they're going to be in the apex of that motion, and that's the motion I need to capture in that specific spot.
Mhm. Can you speak about this image of the dancer? It looks like water coming down.
Yeah, so there's a rain room here in Los Angeles, and so
Oh.
I just rented this space, and it's good lukewarm water. He's not freezing cold. He's very comfortable, and this is just one of many shots that we took of him just kind of celebrating himself in the rain. So it's one of the idea of being cleansed of all the things that kind of burden us as men, and he's just washing himself clean of all that's been kind of thrown on him, if you will. So that's kind of the
Beautiful.
story behind
Really
that.
beautiful. Do you ever play any music during your sessions to inspire the dancers to leap around, or?
Yeah, all the time. And I asked them, is there any specific song or some specific playlist that works for you? And if they do, I said, please bring it. And I'll pipe it into the studio if we're in studio. Even if we're out on location, I did one shot on a rooftop, and we just had the speakers going. And so whatever makes them most comfortable, whatever makes them feel they're most freeing, we always want to play music in the space. That way, I'm giving them something kind of to dance to.
What, just out of my own curiosity, how much does the rain room cost to rent? Because I want to do it now.
It's not that expensive. Gosh, I can send you the link to the studio here that has this rain space. It's not very expensive at all. I think FD Studios is one, and I think that's the one that I used. And I think it's not even like $100 for an hour. So,
Wow.
yeah.
That just opened my eyes to all sorts of possibilities. That's great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is this little boy on Broadway or in a show, or what's his story?
Okay, so he's a phenomenal little kid. I discovered him through the Debbie Allen Dance Academy here. And I think he was 11 years old. And he was just super flexible, super eager to do this. And his dad brought him in one day, and he was super shy. And it posed a really hard challenge for me, just because just to break him out of his shell. So in this shot here, especially, I said, when you jump, I want you to make the biggest noise you can. So jump and say, ha! I know it's going to sound dumb, you're going to feel stupid, but please just do it. Trust me, it's going to give me what I need, because it's going to push that energy out of him. And while he's doing the jump, I just say ha. And so we got the shot. So when you find, some, especially with working with little kids where they're not, they're so timid in the beginning, you got to really kind of break down those walls. So I say, just jump and just say ha, or hey, whatever, and just kind of break them up that. So a phenomenal dancer, but he was super shy in the beginning. So towards the end, I kind of broke him of his shyness. So, and his dad actually had to pull him aside and say, hey, we're here, this is serious, don't mess this up. He's kind of like the stage dad. And he was still kind of timid, but I kind of had to work with him to make him feel comfortable.
So we have another question from Lori Freitag, and she's asking, how long is a typical shoot? How long do dancers take to warm up, and how many shots do you take per session?
Yeah, I don't work the dancers longer than 2 hours. So whatever I can get in 2 hours is what I get. And so that includes, them coming in, them stretching, me talking with them, talking about, the look. Like in this case, he needed time to get his makeup together, and then I had to construct this scaffolding. So whatever it took within those 2 hours, that's what I work with. Only because the last thing I want to do is wear these dancers out. I would never want to keep a dancer on set for 4 hours, 5 hours at a time, just going on. If I can't get the shot in 2 hours, then I'm not doing my job.
Wonderful, wonderful project. And I'm sure it's a project that you will do forever. I mean, it doesn't need an end.
Yeah.
I mean, being a dancer yourself,
Mhm.
what you do, so it's easy to like bring other people who absolutely have the same passion as you do and show it and ignite it. So thank you so much, Hal.
Thank
So
you.
sorry that your internet went off, but we rescued you and it's all
Yes, thank you. I'm
good.
glad I was able to come back. Thank you.
It's all
Yay.
good. Yay. All
Thank
right.
you so
Thank
much.
you.
Bye.
All right. Our next artist tonight is Alex Morel. Alex Morel is a fine art photographer living in Tucson, Arizona. She was born and raised in Spain and moved to the USA in 2015. She started her artistic career in 2017 in Virginia, and in 2018, she presented her first solo exhibition called We the Women, Portraits of Empowerment, which received a grant award by the Puffin Foundation. In her photographic work, directed documentary portraits coexist with constructed conceptual portraits. Welcome, Alex Morel. Oh.
Hi.
Hi.
Yeah, it works.
Yeah.
Hi. Good evening, everyone. First of all, thank you so much to the Pasadena Photography Art for inviting me. I'm really thankful for the opportunity and to give me some time to talk about my photography journey and my last body of work. Yes, so I want to start talking about how I started in photography. It was 2011, and I had a career in marketing and both academically and professionally, but my daughter was born and then my world shook. I'm telling this to be able to explain where my motivation comes from in photography. So when she was born, I had this longing as a mom that she will have her own dreams and she will work for them. But how could I expect that from her if I was not doing it myself, right? So I was on maternity leave and I never came back to the office. So that's where my photography career started. It was baby steps. I didn't know where that was going to take me. So I had this dream that one day I would go back to college and pursue a master's degree in photography and really study with what I wanted to do, because my first career was not something that I was given any options. So when I moved to the US, luckily, the universe sent me this opportunity at Radford University, and that's where I developed my first solo exhibition. Before that, I was working on commissioned portraits, and my focus was to empower women through photography, to share that beautiful energy that drives us to do things and to feel fearless. So with the women, that series, I focused on the face and the energy of the women, but this time in the real stories. And I understood that empowerment didn't come for free. So empowerment would come from overcoming life obstacles. And there is something in that process that give us that energy, that push to, raise up stronger. So in this body of work that we're, that is being displayed right now in the Intimate Power of Words, it's the next step in my photography journey. So it's okay. I wanted to rewind, like to explore what comes before the empowerment. What or how can we get to that point from trauma or life struggles, obstacles in life? How can we get to that empowered moment? So this body of work consists of 12 sequential images. For the first time, I turned the lens towards me. I was not focusing on other women's emotions or stories of empowerment, but I was being vulnerable, showing part of my memories and my history, my projection, but presented in a metaphorical and poetical way. So in these images, I explore themes of female vulnerability, social expectations, search of belonging, suffering. And on the other side, I'm also exploring how words, either expressed or encountered, can help us reach deep in ourselves, and that can lead to healing. And let me explain this, because it's a visual language. I'm talking about words while working with images. So in each image, we can see the character writing. She has written something, or she's in the act of writing, and in different scenarios, because she's aging, she's growing, and with different media, like she can be writing on a word chalk, or here with a typewriter, or sending letters that she has handwritten. So the idea, since this is such a personal, intimate process that I think, you know, we all go through when we transition our deepest emotions, our darkest emotions, I wanted to tell this story in a, like we are peeking into somebody's inner world, that we are peeking into somewhere private with a voyeuristic sense or effect. She's not aware of us. And I also wanted to avoid the eye contact, something that I use in my previous work, always eye contact, because as human, that's the first thing we look for to understand someone's emotions. In this series of images, I try to build a narrative with metaphors and symbolisms so that the viewer can close the narrative loop in his or her own terms and make the story her own or his own. Just putting the pieces of the puzzle together. Because also trying not to show the character's face, I also try to make the stories universal. So it's not the story of that person. It could be any woman, or it could be any person who relates to that, to the emotions and to the emotions and to the what's happening in each image. And even though it's a sequential image and it tells, it can tell a complete story, each image has its own narrative and tell individual stories. I don't know if that makes sense. Hopefully it does.
Oh yeah, it was wonderful. We have a couple of comments about your work already. Roland says your background in visual communication for marketing is evident. Each photo has clear intention that is wonderfully executed. And that's something that I noticed too in your work, is that every corner of the frame is thought out. That you don't have anything in your image that isn't supposed to be there. It's all very intentional and constructed to perfection, really. Another comment is from Annette, and she says, "This is so fantastic. I hope we can get a recording as I have to leave. Thank you so much." I would like to talk about your lighting and your vignetting that you use that is consistent throughout your work. How did you achieve that?
So when I was working on this project, you know, it's completely constructed. It worked like a puzzle that I was putting together. Like you said, everything it's thought of for a reason. And I wanted all of them to work together as a whole. When you see them in an exhibition, in a space, that they all are cohesive. And there is rhythm with, for example, the angles that I chose. Some of the images are from above, some are from behind. So I wanted to step into the middle ground between photography and painting, like to get closer to painting. I wanted to recreate painterly looking images because I want them to tell a story that could be either in a memory or in someone's imagination. So I didn't want them to look completely real. I wanted them to look poetical and metaphorical because that's how I understood this story was. I wanted to tell the story. I didn't want to be factual. I wanted to be somewhere in someone's memory. So coming back to painting, normally in classic painting, we see only one light source, one natural light source. And in some images like here, we do see some lights, but those are added as props to add to the narrative, to add layers to the narrative. And talking about writing and the words, in most of the images, you can read what's in the words, and also the title of the images adds to and more layers of meaning to the images. So I really believe this body of work, it's meant to, or at least my intention was meant to be experienced in person. I present them without a glass. The paper is very textured and it's in a wooden frame, it's pretty big, so you can kind of dive into all the details of the images and really read what's, in the text and get close to all the details. My answer was way too long.
It's okay, it's okay.
Yes.
I have another question from Betsy, and she says,
Sure.
Chantal, can you talk about the quote, walking on water, leaving sheets of paper floating behind image?
Okay, so me?
Yeah.
You said Chantal, I thought that question was for her. So about this image?
Oh, I'm
Well,
sorry, you're not Chantal. That's just what the question said.
Okay, no, I thought
about
the
that.
question was for her.
I just read it. So anyway, she does want to talk about this image.
Okay, in general, so this image is the last one of the series, and I don't want to give much of direction of my intention, because I like to leave people out to come to their own reading of the image. But to me, this is an image of hope, of the exploration of words and writing, either emotional writing or expressive writing or finding words, how that help us dive again within ourselves to get to know ourselves better, and how at the end, okay, we use the words, we use the layers as a metaphor of understanding our own journey. And that is the moment, to me, when she's ready to leave it behind.
So is this almost a reflection of your hope to be this person when you are of a certain age?
Well, the aging is a metaphor for growing. It doesn't necessarily gonna happen at the end, but it's at the end of your own process of healing, of understanding, okay, I've gone through this. I know myself, I'm ready to leave this behind, to grow, to move forward. So that is the meaning for me. Some people read this are, passing away, or this image, the name is Aleipharus, which means that it has wings. So it's ready to fly. And there are also, you can see some butterflies in some of the images that are connected along the images. You can find also clues or signs that are interconnected between images. But, like I said, when you see them in person, you can, with time, you can kind of reveal or uncover some of those clues that are there. Like, for example,
would you say that the different models that you used are all representing the growth of one character and her reaching her level of empowerment?
So I try to do this with the hair and, of course, the skin color. but the hair, and there is an evolution in the hair too, portraying this growth. In the first two images, when she's a little girl and a young girl, she's wearing two braids. This one will be her teenage year. This image is called intraverse, which is the intraverse, the universe that we have inside, right? So that helps understand and connect what she, maybe she's inside her wardrobe, she's a teenage, she has one braid here, the moment of breaking, leaving behind, whatever, she has one braid, and then we see her with the hair loose, and we see curly red hair. And then
this image here, sorry to interrupt,
Yeah.
but I'm so intrigued by this image and the metaphor of the balloons. Can you explain that?
Well, this image is called emptiness. You can read when you have the image big. In one letter, you can guess it says, "To my baby boy." And, the blue makes the reference to, traditionally the connotation is sadness. And in this case, to a baby boy, we see the crib is empty and she has, all these letters ready to send.
There was a comment from Susan Kaufer Carey, and she says, yes, love this. She's talking about Aliferous, the image of the woman in the water. She says, love this and the way the reflection in the water looks like wings.
Mhm.
Was that your intention when you made it? For the water to look like wings?
No, it was not, but that's the beauty of letting the other people too. It was more the play of the reflection, but I didn't thought about that. But that's why, everyone can find its own, stories and magic once you make the work. It's not yours anymore. So
It's wonderful. It's beautifully lit. It's the intention of the project is gorgeous. The story that we can all put ourselves in it. It's really beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank
We're
you.
thrilled to have you here tonight. Thank you, Alex.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you.
All right.
Not Chantal, Alex.
Yeah,
Sorry
just
about that.
great questions. So I was like, okay.
I know, right?
It's so confusing.
Yeah.
Anyways, we're very excited because we have our last artist coming to us from Berlin tonight. So he has gotten up in the middle of the night, and Theo Godmann is originally from Wiesbaden, Germany. Theo Godmann received a BFA in documentary photography from the Savannah College of Art and Design. He uses the photographic medium as a tool to understand himself and his environment. He works on numerous documentary projects that examine human experience, identity, and culture. And a little fun fact is that Theo played soccer internationally. Welcome, Theo. Super happy that you got up for us. It is wee hours of the night. It's all yours.
Hey, thank you so much. Yeah, it's 3:30 and I'm awake, so I'm ready for this. Yeah, so this project is my most recent one, and I completed it during school. It was kind of my thesis work, and it took a long time to get to that point where I was ready to get into the subject. And it's, if you want to put it simply, it's documenting my transition from female to male. But I like to say that it's ultimately me becoming myself. It's not just about gender, it's so much more about just my journey of, finding out who I am and becoming that person. And I'm documenting many parts of, that are part of this journey. It's not just, what you expect. It's so much more subtle moments in everyday life, and in connection to other people. It, shows in your environment. It shows in, simple moments like taking a shower is so significant in experiencing such a intense emotional chaos inside that is happening. And the photographic medium has been really important to me because I can understand my own conflicts and kind of make sense of them. It's hard, especially with such physical changes. It's hard to keep track of how you feel and how you look. And so it's nice to use use photographs to almost take a third person perspective and look at your journey from that, point of view. And I'm able to understand myself better and my feelings and just how much I've changed too. Often it's not talked about in transitioning, that even physically you look different, and it like a lot changes really fast. Your mind is slower in picking that up because you're used to your you looking a certain way for a long time. And I transitioned when I was 22, so I consider that pretty late in my life. And I'm used to myself looking a certain way, so even if I look different now, I still sometimes get surprised when I look in the mirror or look at photographs, because my physical self is so different of how my mind still has it registered. So that's very interesting conversation I have with myself by taking these photographs and looking at them. And all these are shot on film. That was also really important to me, because it's shooting analog is just very intimate, and you kind of take a step back and really think about every single photo you take. I really wanted the medium to reflect also the subject matter. And with analog photography, it's so you just spend a lot of time on every single photo, and also the whole process of developing it and scanning, and it's like a very hands-on, very intimate relationship you create with these photographs. And that was very important to me in this journey too. And some of these photos are very straightforward, that really convey what was going on, but some are more subtle, like the one with my legs in the mirror. I didn't really fully knew what I was feeling that in that moment, but I knew I had to photograph it, and it's a very subtle moment, but much of my photography is very subtle. And then I have some that are more straightforward and more strong, and there I am, for example, this photo. But there's much more of course that goes into that too. And yeah, it's really hard to, I think, talk about my project, because I use everything to put it visually, because I'm missing the words to explain how I feel. That's why photography is so important, especially in this project, because I can't put words into how I feel. So I take these photos and then I look at them, and then I understand myself, even though I still can't explain fully how I'm feeling. So this has been very educational for me, but I also hope that it shows how universal this experience is. It's, of course, has to do with gender, but it is just a self-discovery and a self-acceptance journey that I hope other people can relate to. And it's not just this specific thing that, is happening to me. It's also just, a human experience. And yeah, some of these are very important to me and very intimate. Like this one is a photo my brother drew for, I think, last Christmas, and he drew us both as male and like holding hands, and things like that is so important to me, and very subtle things in my life. But this was a very, very important moment for me.
You mentioned earlier when we were rehearsing for the show that your photos tell you how you're feeling. Can you talk more about that?
Yeah. Sometimes I think when I take the photo, I'm more aware of what I want to convey, but oftentimes there's just something inside me that I just let go of everything and I just shoot. And then, through the process of developing it and scanning it and getting the final image, then weeks went by sometimes. And then I go back and then I have this image and then I sit down with it and then I let it tell me what I felt in that moment. because sometimes, memories always change, and when you look back, it always, seems different. But I feel like photographs capture the moments so well that I have this moment in time where I felt really strongly and felt really, vulnerable. And I look at the image and it tells me what I was going through in that moment. And I think it's very, very exciting thing for me to do with myself in a way.
Can you talk about when you first realized or when you first felt you were born with the wrong gender?
I think a lot of people, going through this always say they always knew. And I think that is, there's definitely truth in that. You don't always know what it is. There's some kind of imbalance and something's just like not right. And even if you can't put the words to it, there's something. And there will come a time where it just clicks, and then the source of that, uncomfort and like, imbalance in your life. And there was many things in the way of me accepting that, that was outside factors, but also internally, I wasn't ready to accept it yet. And there was what you said, that I played soccer, and that was a big part too, because soccer is such an important part in my life, and I didn't want to let that go internally too, because it's something that it's also part of me. But over time, it just like came back more and more stronger and stronger, and I knew I had to decide to be myself, to be okay and be happy, and create the work that I want to create and be confident. And for me to just be able to live in my authentic self, I had to pursue who I am. So I feel like I always knew internally, but it took me a long time to come to the realization and to be accepting of that. And I'm really proud of myself for getting to that point.
I commend your bravery for showing us this project. Was there a tipping point at which you said, hey, I'm going to go through this process now and transition, or was it a really gradual process for you?
Of the documenting or the transition?
Of the actual transition.
I think it just gradually, I came to terms with it. And then I think once I accepted it and was sure of it, then I couldn't wait any longer to get started and to become myself. Then it like almost became painful, the time that was, that it's, I started accepting it, and then actually starting to become myself was, every second that passed was really painful, because I knew that where I wanted to be and where I was at was not there yet. So that was, yeah.
Theo, how long did it take you to transition? Decided?
I think, especially during the pandemic, I had a lot of time to myself, away from everything, and just really reflect on my life and go through, self-healing, and just, just understand myself. And that's when I kind of realized, my feelings and who I am. So I really, appreciate almost the pandemic for being, giving me that space to just be by myself and, figure out who I am. And then I was playing college soccer, so I had to, continue doing that until the last season, because it would be considered like unfair if I started, taking hormones, and that would increase my muscles, and like, of course, that would, play with, the unfairness of it. So I had to wait almost a year to get started because of soccer. And
Wow.
that year was really painful, because I was ready, but I, couldn't. But it was also, of course, different. It was not, I was not completely not myself, because I came out and I, was outwardly, who I was, and told my friends. And that was a big step already, even though the physical changes weren't there yet. Just coming out and being who you are is already I really, really appreciate, and that really, really helped, that step of it.
There's a comment from Debbie Arlook, who's one of our advisors at Pasadena Photography Arts, and she says, "Congratulations on making such an intensely personal project. I commend your courage. As much as it is cathartic and transformative for you, I imagine it can do the same for others. I appreciate hearing you speak about the third-person perspective, your interior conversation, and external perception of yourself. If there is one message you want to share with your younger self, what would it be?"
Wow. Thank you. That's a very hard question. I think I often want to, tell that, person I used to be, who I am, and like, that it's okay to be myself. But I think I had to go through all these steps and all these hardships to become the person that I am today. I think I would just tell the person to, believe in themselves and just have strength and hope and just keep going. I don't know, just keep going. It will, life continues to change and it's fluid and it will get better. And yeah.
There's another comment from Rollins, and he says, "I commend your courage to share these with us. Aside from the technical hurdles, was it challenging for you to put yourself in front of the camera and allow yourself to be vulnerable?"
Definitely, especially, because I'm in some of I'm very vulnerable, especially, being topless that was such a significant photograph for me, because being topless is such a important part of boyhood and manhood that I was never able to experience because I was perceived female, and I wasn't also aware of my identity yet, but also that was just something that I never really got to experience. And I kind of, with that photo, I kind of reclaimed that manhood that I didn't get to have, and feel the confidence and acceptance and like strength that I've never felt before about my body, because I always had such a hateful relationship to my body that this photo really was like a really important part in my chapter of like, wow, like this, I really grew and I really became this very confident and strong person that is just himself, and that was really significant for me. And I knew I wanted to, portray it in a photograph that is the same amount of strength and power.
It's such a brave and powerful image. I really wanted to end the show on this image because it is so brave of you, and it's also touching that you have a scab on your right knee, so it shows that I just really like that part of how you're in your environment and you're comfortable in it and you're not afraid to show it. And it's just beautiful work, beautifully made.
Thank you so much.
Well, you all were absolutely wonderful. I'm just going to do one last sweep. Is there any questions that anybody would like to ask from the audience before we close the show? If not, I have to say that our 4 artists were brilliant tonight. Even the technical glitch was easily solved. So thank you everybody for coming to Pasadena Photography Arts. You can definitely support us by collect and support. You can buy photographs on our website, and you can definitely underwrite a program. So thank you so much. We'll see you again and have a great evening. Bye everybody.
Bye.